My name is Marcus Webb, and this is the hardest story I've ever told. For 7 years I carried a secret that consumed me from the inside out, a secret that turned my return from war into a descent into personal hell, a secret that destroyed relationships, dragged me to the bottom of countless bottles, and finally left me in a hospital bed with a terminal diagnosis. I had made peace with death. I was ready to take my secret to the grave, until Rex appeared. My war dog, my brother in arms, showed up at the door of that hospital room like a ghost from Afghanistan. 7 years older, his fur grayer, but with the same amber eyes that knew all my fears. Eyes that had witnessed the day a part of me died in a dusty village, thousands of miles from here. But Rex hadn't come just to say goodbye. He had traveled more than 1,000 miles, escaped from the army itself, risked everything to reach me. And when I saw him standing at the door of that room with a new scar I didn't recognize, I understood that he too carried the weight of what had happened that March of 2018. This is the story of how a man who thought he would die alone discovered he had never truly been alone. This is the story of how Rex and I finally found our way back home. The smell of disinfectant had burned my nostrils for 3 days. 3 days trapped in this windowless room, listening to the constant beep of the machines that monitored my decline. The oncologist had been blunt. 6 months, maybe less. The words echoed in my head like bullets ricocheting off metal. I was at peace with it. I really was. 42 years carrying a burden no man should carry. Cancer wasn't a death sentence. It was a release. Finally, a war I didn't have to win. A battle where defeat meant rest. The cold linoleum under my bare feet reminded me of the cold concrete of the barracks in Afghanistan. Even here, sick and defeated, my body still reacted to familiar sounds. The machine's whistle sounded like attack sirens. The hurried footsteps of nurses echoed like boots running to battle positions. That's when I heard it, claws scraping the corridor floor. Slow, hesitant, as if whoever walked them carried invisible wounds too. My heart stopped before I even saw the silhouette in the doorway. Rex. Grey hair that hadn't existed when we parted. A body still imposing, but with a curve to the shoulders I recognized, the posture of someone who'd seen too much, lost too much. My sister Sarah held the leash with trembling hands, tears streaming freely down her face. How? My voice came out hoarse, broken. He escaped the military kennel 3 months ago, Sarah murmured, struggling to control her emotion. No one knew where he was. The military searched everywhere. Then yesterday he showed up at my door. I don't know how, but he knew you were here. Rex stared at me with those amber eyes I knew better than my own reflection. Eyes that had seen hell with me, that had witnessed things no god should have to see. But there was something different. A new scar cut across his muzzle, a white, irregular line I didn't remember. My memory was photographic for details. Military training does that to you. Every scar, every mark on my companion's body was etched into my mind. This one was new. Where did that come from? I whispered, pointing at the mark. Sarah shook her head. We don't know. When he disappeared, he was fine. When he came back, Rex took a step forward, slow, measured. His eyes never left mine, but there was something in them that chilled me to the bone. Guilt. The same guilt that had been eating at me for 7 years, as if he too carried secrets heavier than lead. My chest tightened when I realized he hadn't come just to visit. He had come to say goodbye, or maybe he had come to fetch something, some absolution only I could give. He's been restless, Sarah continued, her voice thick. He won't eat properly. He won't sleep. It's like he's looking for something or someone. Rex drew closer, each step deliberate, loaded with meaning. When our distance closed to just a few inches, he stopped and looked me straight in the eyes. And then I understood. He hadn't come to tell me goodbye. He had come to remind me of something I had buried so deep I almost managed to forget. Something about that mission, about the village, about what really happened that day when part of me died. My hand trembled as I reached out to touch his head. Rex inclined himself slightly, accepting the contact, but his eyes never left mine, as if he were waiting, as if he knew my time was running out and that finally it was time to settle the score. With the past, with the truth, with the both of us. Rex lowered his head beneath my hand, and suddenly we were no longer in the hospital. We were back in the suffocating heat of Kandahar, September 2017. I had just arrived at the forward outpost when I saw him for the first time. a 3-year-old German shepherd, coat as dark as the Afghan night, eyes that had already seen enough death for a lifetime. His previous handler had stepped on a mine 3 days earlier. Rex was alone, refusing food, growling at anyone who came near. "That one's broken," Sergeant Thompson said, spitting on the dusty ground. "We'll have to put him down." But when I approached, something happened. Rex looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something I recognized. The same loneliness that was eating me from the inside. The same feeling of being lost in enemy territory, even when surrounded by allies. I extended my hand slowly. He sniffed, hesitated, then pressed his muzzle against my palm. Warm, trusting, alive. "Looks like you two understand each other," Thompson muttered, already filling out the paperwork that would make us official partners. For 6 months, Rex was my shadow. He detected explosives better than any equipment we had. Saved my life 17 times. I counted each one. He had a 6th sense for danger, sniffing out ambushes before the insurgents even took position. We slept side by side in the bunker, shared rations when food was scarce. He understood my commands before I even spoke them. We were a perfect war machine, synchronized by the need to survive. But it was in a village, 15 kilometers from Lashkar Gah, that everything changed. March 27, 2018. The date is tattooed on my soul like military ID numbers. A search and seizure operation that was supposed to be routine. Intelligence said there was a weapons cache in a specific house. We went in at dawn, 3 soldiers and Rex. The house was empty, or at least it seemed that way. Rex grew restless as soon as we crossed the threshold, nose twitching, ears on full alert. I should have listened. I always listened to Rex, but Lieutenant Morrison was impatient, wanting to finish quickly and get back to base. "It's just an empty house, soldier," he said when I suggested we pull back. "Your dog's chasing ghosts." That's when we heard the crying. A child. Couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, hidden behind a pile of flour sacks in the darkest corner of the room, huge, terrified eyes staring at us as if we were demons. Rex growled low. Not at the child. Rex never threatened civilians. He was growling at something I couldn't see. "It's okay," I said in Dari, the local language I'd learned. "We won't hurt you." But as I moved closer, Rex barked, loud, desperate, trying to warn me. The child moved their hand. It all happened so fast. The flash of metal under the clothes, the unmistakable click of a grenade being armed, Rex leaping in front of me, the world exploding in sound and light. When the dust settled, there was blood everywhere. The child was dead. Rex had superficial wounds. I was unharmed. The official report said the child was an enemy combatant using a civilian disguise, that Rex had reacted by training, neutralizing the threat, that I had given the command. But I knew the truth. Rex hadn't waited for my order. He saw the danger and reacted on instinct, protecting me in the only way he knew how. He jumped at a frightened child who probably didn't even know what they were holding. I lied in the report, said I had given the attack command, took responsibility because Rex couldn't speak for himself, because he was just a dog following orders, and I was the soldier accountable for him. But Rex knew. In his eyes that night and every night after, I saw the same guilt that now stared at me from the hospital doorway. We both carried the weight of that dead child. 2 soldiers broken by a war we couldn't understand, bound by a secret that consumed us from the inside out. And now, 7 years later, with death knocking at my door, Rex had returned. Maybe it was time to finally settle the score with the ghost that haunted us. I came home in November 2018. 17 hours of flight, 3 layovers, and a soul that weighed more than the luggage I carried. Denver Airport was decorated for Thanksgiving. Families reunited. Children ran between their parents' legs. Life happening around me while I felt like a ghost watching the living. Rex stayed in Afghanistan. That was the hardest part. He still had 2 years of active service left, and I couldn't use a weapon anymore. Couldn't give orders that might result in death. My hands trembled every time I touched cold metal. The nightmares came every night, always the same child, always the same terrified look. "It's temporary," the military psychologist said. "PTSD is treatable. You'll be back on duty in 6 months." But I knew I would never return. How do you explain that it wasn't just the trauma of war? How do you say you carry the weight of a death that wasn't your responsibility, but that you took on as if it were? Sarah picked me up at the airport. My younger sister, always the family optimist, tried to keep the conversation light on the drive home. She talked about the new job, the boyfriend, Christmas plans. I listened, but my answers were monosyllables, grunts, as if I'd forgotten how to talk to people who didn't carry weapons. "It will get better," she said when she dropped me at my apartment. "You just need time. Time." As if time could erase the sound of a grenade exploding. As if time could resurrect a child. The first months were a blur of therapy and medication. Antidepressants that made me feel submerged. Group sessions where veterans shared war stories while I stayed silent, guarding my secret like an unexploded bomb. That's when I discovered alcohol helped. It didn't erase the memories, but it made them less sharp. Jack Daniels became my domestic war companion. 1 bottle a night, sometimes 2 when the nightmares were worse. Sarah tried to intervene a few times, organized family gatherings, introduced me to single friends. "You need to move on," she insisted. "You need to find someone. Build a life." But how to build a life on foundations of lies? How to love someone when you can't look in the mirror without seeing blood on your hands? I tried for a while. Met Rebecca at the supermarket. A nurse, kind, patient with my silences and my night terrors. We were together 8 months. Until the night I woke screaming, cold sweat covering my body, and she found me on the bedroom floor trembling. "What are these nightmares about?" she asked, holding my hand. "Maybe if you talked about it." "I can't," I said, and it was true. How to explain that my guilt wasn't just surviving while others died. How to say I had lied to protect a dog, and that lie had become my prison. Rebecca left the next week. "I can't compete with ghosts," she said, and I didn't blame her. I couldn't either. Years passed in a routine of temp jobs and loneliness. Night security, delivery driver, anything that didn't require prolonged interaction with people. I moved back to living alone, cut contact with friends, answered Sarah's messages with polite monosyllables. The diagnosis came like a strange relief. "Pancreatic cancer," the doctor said, flipping through tests as if they were pages of a tedious book. "Advanced stage. Aggressive treatment might buy a few more years, but—" "And without treatment," I interrupted. He looked at me surprised. 6 months, maybe less. But I don't recommend—" "Thanks, doctor." I left the office with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. Finally, a war where defeat was acceptable. Where surrender didn't mean cowardice but peace. I didn't tell Sarah immediately. Spent weeks organizing my few belongings, paying bills, putting everything in order. Like a soldier preparing for his last mission. Cancer wasn't punishment. It was liberation. A chance to finally stop carrying a weight that was never mine to bear. Or at least, that's what I thought, until Rex appeared at the hospital door with that new scar and those eyes full of guilt. Maybe some weights were too big to carry alone. Rex didn't leave my side for the next 3 days. Sarah brought a makeshift bed for him, old blankets and a cushion, but he preferred to sleep on the cold floor at the foot of my hospital bed, always alert, always watching. There was something different in his behavior, something that made me uneasy. In the war, Rex had a predictable routine. He slept hard after missions, ate with a voracious appetite, played with a piece of rope when he was relaxed. Now he barely touched the food Sarah brought. He would stand for hours at the window, staring at the parking lot as if waiting for someone. "He's been doing that since he showed up," Sarah told me on Monday during one of her visits. "He stands there for hours, just looking, like he's keeping watch for something." "Watching what?" She shrugged, but I noticed the worry in her eyes. "I don't know, but it's strange. Yesterday, when the nurse came to check your vitals, Rex positioned himself between you two. He didn't growl, didn't attack, but he went into guard like you were— Like I was what? Like you were evidence he needs to protect." The word evidence echoed in my head for the rest of the afternoon. Rex wasn't just a dog visiting his old partner. He was here with purpose. But what purpose? It was on Tuesday that I started asking more direct questions. "Sarah," I called when she arrived with lunch, "tell me exactly how Rex showed up at your door." She paused, unwrapping a sandwich I probably couldn't eat. "I already told you, he just appeared." "No, tell me everything, detail by detail." Rex lifted his head from the floor as if he knew we were talking about him. His eyes fixed on mine, intense, almost pleading me to ask the right questions. Sarah sighed. "It was Sunday morning. I was having coffee when I heard scratching at the door. I thought it was the neighbor's cat. When I opened it, he was there, sitting like he'd been waiting his whole life. Was he injured? The scar on his muzzle was fresh, not bleeding, but recent, and he was thin, very thin. like he'd walked a long distance. Where could he have come from? Sarah hesitated. That's the weird part. I called the military kennel to report I'd found him. The officer who answered sounded surprised. He said Rex had last been seen at Fort Carson, Colorado. That was 3 months ago. Fort Carson. My stomach tightened. 3 months? Yes. But here's the part I don't understand. Sarah lowered her voice like she was sharing a secret. Fort Carson is over 1,000 miles from here. How does a dog travel that distance alone? 1,000 miles. Through mountains, deserts, towns. Rex had made that journey with a specific purpose. But why? What in Fort Carson had made him run away exactly 3 months earlier? There's more, Sarah continued, looking nervously at Rex. The officer said Rex had been acting strange in the weeks before he disappeared, refusing orders, getting agitated during training, like something was bothering him. 3 months ago, I tried to do the math in my foggy head from the medications. March. That was when I received the diagnosis. But how could Rex have known? Sarah, did you tell anyone about my illness before you told me? She shook her head vigorously. Of course not. Why would I? I watched Rex more closely. He wasn't just visiting. He was studying me. Every movement, every breath, every word, as if he were assessing my condition, deciding something. What kind of training was Rex doing at Fort Carson? The officer wouldn't go into details. Something about specialized programs. He only said Rex was being prepared for a new mission. A new mission. The pieces started to fit together in a disturbing way. Rex had escaped from a new mission to come to me. Not out of nostalgia or common canine loyalty. There was something specific he needed to do. That night, when Sarah left and the hospital corridors fell silent, I turned to Rex. What do you know? I whispered into the dark. What happened in those 3 months? Rex rose slowly and approached my bed. He put his front paws on the mattress and looked at me directly. For a moment, I swear I saw human intelligence in those amber eyes, as if he were trying to tell me something I still wasn't ready to hear. He lowered his head and gently touched his muzzle to my hand. The new scar was rough against my skin, and then I understood. The scar wasn't from a fight or an accident. It was deliberate, precise, like an identification mark, or like evidence of something someone wanted to hide. My blood ran cold when I realized Rex hadn't come just to say goodbye. He had come to show me something about that village, something I thought was buried forever, and someone didn't want that truth to come to light. The morphine was wearing off when the memory came back, not in fragments this time, but whole, sharp, as if I were back in that dusty house in March 2018. Rex had been restless from the moment we entered, nose twitching, ears constantly rotating. I knew those signs. He had detected something my human senses couldn't pick up. I should have listened to him. I always did. But Lieutenant Morrison was impatient. A routine mission that was dragging on longer than expected. Let's finish this, soldier. Your dog is seeing ghosts. The child was hidden in the darkest corner of the room. A boy, not a girl, as my distorted memory had kept. Maybe 8 years old, too thin, huge eyes fixed on us as if we were demons from hell. I approached slowly, hands visible, rifle low. I had experience with frightened civilians. I knew how to calm them, how to show I wasn't a threat. It's okay, I said in Dari. We won't hurt you. Rex growled, low, guttural, a warning. That's when I saw the metal, not in the child's hands, on the floor, partially hidden under the sacks of flour. An improvised grenade with exposed wires. The child probably didn't even know it was there, probably didn't know what it was, but Rex knew. War dogs are trained to detect explosives. They are trained to react when they detect threats to their handlers. They are trained to neutralize dangers before they materialize. Rex leapt, not at the child, at the grenade. Everything happened in slow motion and in impossible speed at the same time. Rex landed on the explosive, his paws triggering the wires. The detonation came a second later, but he had redirected the force of the blast upward, away from me. The child died in the partial collapse of the ceiling. Rex survived because military dogs are trained for those situations. Body armor, impact absorption techniques. He knew exactly what he was doing. I gave no order. Rex acted on instinct to protect, exactly as he was trained to do. He detected the threat, assessed the options, chose the course of action that maximized my chance of survival. An innocent child died because my war dog did his job perfectly. When reinforcements arrived, Morrison was hysterical. What happened here? Why didn't you wait for orders? That's when I lied. I gave the command, I said, looking at Rex, who stared back at me with eyes full of, what? Guilt, confusion. I saw the threat and ordered neutralization. Why did I lie? Because Rex couldn't answer for his actions. Because military dogs follow orders. They don't make moral decisions. Because taking responsibility seemed like the right thing to do. But Rex knew the truth. In the months that followed, before I returned home, I noticed changes in him. Hesitation before executing commands. Long looks when he thought I wasn't watching, as if he were studying me, trying to understand why I had taken the blame for something he had done. Military dogs are intelligent, smarter than we give them credit for. Rex understood I had lied to protect him, and it disturbed him as much as it disturbed me. Now, 7 years later, looking at him at the foot of my hospital bed, I finally understood. Rex didn't run away from Fort Carson because he was being retrained for a new mission. He ran away because he discovered something about that old mission. Maybe someone questioned the report. Maybe they investigated more deeply. Maybe they found discrepancies. The new scar on his muzzle wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate mark, precise, like a forensic identification, or like evidence that someone wanted to hide. My blood ran cold when I realized Rex hadn't come just to see me die. He had come to warn me. Someone had discovered I lied in that report. Someone knows it was Rex, not me, who caused the child's death. And now they want the truth, or they want to bury it forever. I looked at Rex, and for the first time in 7 years, I clearly saw what was in his eyes. It wasn't guilt, it was fear. Rex was afraid. For me, for him, for what would happen when the truth surfaced. My lie to protect him had become our mutual condemnation, and someone was coming to collect. The decision came like lightning cutting through the morphine haze. If someone was coming after the truth, I would get there first, on my own terms, the right way. "Sarah," I called when she arrived the next morning. "I need to leave the hospital." She nearly dropped the coffee she was carrying. "What?" The doctors said I have 6 months. I'm not wasting them in this bed." I looked at Rex, who lifted his head as if he understood perfectly. "I have something to do." It took 3 days to convince the medical staff to release me to home care. Sarah had to sign a pile of documents, taking full responsibility. I knew I was being selfish, but for the first time in 7 years, I had a purpose beyond simply existing. The first step was the hardest. Sitting at the desk I'd set up on Sarah's kitchen table, with Rex lying at my feet, I opened the laptop and began to research. Names, dates, locations, trying to reconstruct everything I knew about that mission. Ahmad Khalil, I typed slowly, the name I had memorized but never spoken aloud. The child from the village. The information came bit by bit. A family of farmers, no ties to insurgents. The boy had been at his grandfather's house when we arrived. He had probably hidden when he heard the military vehicles. My throat tightened when I found a photo of him, a toothless smile holding a small spotted dog. He was even younger than I remembered. Rex came closer and placed his head on my knee, as if he knew I needed strength to go on. I found the family's contact through a human rights organization. Ahmad had an older sister, Fatima, who had moved to the United States 2 years after our mission. She lived in Detroit, worked as a translator for refugees. My hand trembled as I dialed the number. "Hello? Fatima Khalil?" My voice came out hoarse. "Yes, who is this?" How to begin? How to explain? "My name is Marcus Webb. I was an American soldier in Afghanistan. I was in the village where your brother died." The silence on the other end lasted an eternity. "Why are you calling me?" she finally asked, her voice heavy with old pain. "Because I need to tell the truth about what really happened that day. We met in a cafe in Detroit the following week. Sarah drove, Rex in the back seat, my pain medication in a bag I kept at my side. The 6-hour trip drained me, but it was worth every mile. Fatima was younger than I expected, maybe 25, wearing a blue hijab, eyes that had already seen much suffering. She hesitated when she saw Rex, but something in her expression changed when he slowly approached and sat respectfully at her feet. "He was there too?" she asked. "Yes. He is part of the story I need to tell." I spent 2 hours explaining everything. The mission, the grenade, how Rex had acted on instinct to protect me, how I had taken responsibility to protect him, how that lie had destroyed my life, and probably his too. Fatima cried. Not with anger, as I had expected, but with something that felt like understanding. "Ahmad loved dogs," she said at last. "He always said they were pure, that they acted only out of love." She looked at Rex. "Your dog was protecting you. Ahmad would have understood that. How can you forgive?" "It's not forgiveness," she interrupted. "It's understanding. You both carried this weight for 7 years. My brother wouldn't have wanted that. He was too kind. When we left the cafe, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Not relief, it was still too early for that, but something like hope." Rex walked taller on the way back, as if he too felt we were finally on the right path. There was still much to do. Other reports to review, other people to contact. The full truth needed to come out before someone twisted it. But for the first time since 2018, I wasn't running from the past. I was running back to it. The military hearing was scheduled for a cold Tuesday in October. A small room, grey walls, 3 officers seated behind a table that looked too large for the space. I had formally requested a review of the March 27, 2018 mission report. Rex was at my side. Not hidden, not relegated to a waiting room, but sitting at attention like the soldier he always was. Sarah had fought with 6 bureaucrats to get permission for him to be present. "This animal was part of the mission," she argued. "He has the right to be here." Right, as if Rex were more than a dog, as if he were exactly what I had always known him to be, my brother in arms. Colonel Hendricks read the documents for several long minutes before looking up at me. "Private Webb, you requested this hearing to review a report you yourself drafted 7 years ago. Can you explain why?" I took a deep breath. The words I had rehearsed for weeks came out clear, firm. "Sir, I lied in that report. I took responsibility for actions that were not mine." Murmurs in the small hearing. Sarah squeezed my hand. "Continue," Hendricks said. "The truth is that Rex, War Dog 2847, acted on instinct to protect when he detected an improvised explosive. He did not receive an order to neutralize the threat. He acted by training and loyalty." My voice trembled, but I went on. "An innocent child died because my partner did exactly what he was trained to do, to protect me. And I took the blame because I thought it was my responsibility as his handler." Rex looked at me when I said his name. There was no longer guilt in those amber eyes. There was something I took time to recognize. Relief. Major Santos, the only woman on the panel, leaned forward. "Private Webb, you understand that this confession may have legal consequences? Falsifying a military report is a serious offense." "I understand, ma'am. But 7 years carrying a lie is a punishment worse than any military tribunal can impose." Then something happened I hadn't expected. Rex rose slowly and walked up to the officers. He sat in front of the table, in perfect attention, as if presenting himself for judgment. Hendricks watched him for several long seconds. This animal served with distinction for 4 years. 0 human casualties in his unit. 17 successful missions. "Yes, sir. And he saved my life countless times, including the day Ahmad Khalil died. You're telling us you took responsibility for an instinctive action by an animal trained for war? I'm telling you I lied to protect my partner from consequences he didn't deserve. Rex is not just an animal, Colonel. He is a soldier, and soldiers protect one another." The silence that followed seemed to last hours. Finally, Hendricks closed the folder. "This panel will review all aspects of this case. The original report will be corrected to reflect the facts presented today." He paused, looking at Rex. "War Dog 2847 will be formally decorated for valorous action in protection of friendly forces. Private Webb, your courage in coming here today has not gone unnoticed." When we left that room, I felt as if we had left 7 years of weight behind. Rex walked differently, not only upright, but with the dignity of a recognized veteran. On the sidewalk in front of the military building, I knelt and hugged my partner for the first time since Afghanistan. "We did it," I whispered into his grey fur. "We finally did it." Rex pressed his head against my chest, and for the first time in years, we both breathed freely. The last 3 months were the fullest of my life. After the hearing, something changed in the world around us. The story spread first through military channels, then reached the press. "Veteran confesses to lie to protect War Dog." The headlines didn't capture the complexity, but the essence was there. Rex became something we never expected, a symbol. Veterans began to seek me out. First 1, then 5, then dozens. Men and women carrying similar secrets, guilt that wasn't theirs to bear, lies they told to protect companions, human or animal, who couldn't speak for themselves. "How did you find the courage?" each of them would ask. And I would always point to Rex, resting serenely a few feet away. He showed me that the truth is worth more than a lifetime of lies. The Veterans Center where we began meeting weekly nicknamed our gatherings the Rex Circle. He attended every session, moving slowly among the participants as if he knew exactly who needed his silent counsel. Sarah documented everything: photos, recordings, testimonies. "This needs to continue after you're gone," she would say, always pragmatic, always thinking beyond the present moment. And we knew we would go. The cancer progressed faster than expected. In December, the pain became constant. Rex, now nearly 10 years old, developed joint problems, 2 war veterans growing old together with dignity. In the last week of January, when I could hardly get out of bed, Rex came close and did something he hadn't done since Afghanistan. He climbed into bed and lay down beside me, his head resting on my chest like we used to sleep in the bunker. "Are you ready?" I whispered, running my fingers through his graying fur. He looked at me with those amber eyes, now serene, and I knew the answer. We both were ready. Sarah found us the next morning, sleeping peacefully, Rex still with his head on my chest. The veterinarian she called said my heart had stopped during the night, and Rex followed minutes later. As if he couldn't imagine a world without the other, they buried us together in the Veterans Cemetery. The simple headstone reads, "Marcus Webb, soldier, Rex 2847, soldier, partners in war and in peace." But our true legacy is not carved in marble. It's in the eyes of veterans who found the courage to tell their truths, in relationships repaired through honesty, in nightmares that eased when secrets were brought into the light. The Rex Circle still meets every Tuesday. Sarah leads now, helped by other veterans who learned the power of shared truth. They keep an empty chair where Rex used to sit, but everyone knows he's still there, because some partnerships transcend death, some truths are eternal, and unconditional love, whether from a brother in arms, a devoted sister, or a dog who traveled 1,000 miles to teach us about redemption, never truly abandons us. It simply finds new ways to keep living through those we touched along the way. And that is the only immortality that truly matters.